Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna 435 chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it dies at idle and it won't stay running. So we're going to look this thing over a little bit and see if we can figure out what's going on. The first thing you would think to do is to check the fuel system. That's how I start all my repairs. Look at the quality of the fuel and see if it's got water in the bottom of the tank. Make sure the filter's connected, things like that. I also like to remove the filter and pressure test the fuel line. So I'm going to put 10 pounds of pressure on this, and we're going to see if it holds. And it's holding 10 pounds. That tells me the line is good and the carburetor is tight. Now you'll see that I'm pressing the primer bulb, and every time I do that, it kind of raises the needle off the seat, and you lose about a pound of pressure each time. Now you'll see that I switched to vacuum mode on my tester, and I'm pumping the primer bulb. We're pulling vacuum in the metering chamber, and if it holds about 5 inches of mercury, then we know that the check valve in the carburetor is good and we don't have a leak there. So this passed everything. Now that doesn't mean the carburetor is good. We still could have a stiff metering diaphragm or a plugged micro screen or plugged low speed circuit in the carburetor. I see that there's no blockage at the spark arrestor screen. That looks clear. Air filter looks good enough. So I want to look into the cylinder. If the cylinder is clean, then I'm going to move on with this repair. If it's scored, well, that's a whole different story. The spark plug looks like it's pretty new. I think he probably attempted to fix his problem with a spark plug. And looking into the cylinder, boy, that cord doesn't want to pull. Trying to get the piston to go down and look into the cylinder, but it's just pulling really hard. Why do you think that is? That thing should just roll over real easy, right? So let's take the brake off here. All right. I know what the problem is. Do you? We saw the answer right here already. I can't pull this thing over, but when I do release the brake and pull the cord, watch the chain. The chain's turning. That's not supposed to happen because we have a clutch on this chainsaw. That means that there's something going on with the clutch end, and it probably makes it really hard to start, and it certainly puts an extra load on the saw at idle, and that's why it's snubbing out and dying. I was able to get the piston to go down to the bottom dead center, look at the cylinder, and it looked good. So we're going to move forward. Now, all of this is, a pretty good lesson as far as you got to be a detective on these things. You can't just say, look at that, our spring is off on the clutch. You can't just say, well, it won't idle, so we have a fuel problem. You got to kind of look at everything and look at the whole package. So we've determined that we've got some kind of a clutch issue going on here that is making the chain turn all the time, putting an excess load on the engine at idle. We'll have to fix that. See if I can get this bar and chain off of here. And then we're going to have to remove the clutch. So there will be a special tool that you can use to do this. Kind of looking at this spring right now and wondering how that popped out of there. You would think that being a Husqvarna dealer, and I thought this was the right tool, but it's not. And it turns out I don't have the exact factory tool for this. And the reason I never bought one is that there's a simple way to get this clutch off without having to pay for that tool. And I'm going to show you that right now. This is not it. If you put a rope in the cylinder and locked it, you might be able to get away with doing this. Once in a while, if that clutch is loose, this will work. Now remember, that's reverse threads on that clutch. And, you know, I thought I would just show you that shortcut that sometimes works but usually doesn't. So we're going to put a rope in here and do this the right way, kinda. I used to always just stuff the rope inside the cylinder. And then I was watching Erica on Married with Small Engines, and she said she always puts the rope in the cylinder. She folds it in half and pushes it in there. So when she pulls the rope out, she can tell if there's damage from it, maybe getting caught in a port or something like that. I never gave it much thought. I know that you can't let the rope get caught in a port, but I never gave much thought as far as examining the rope or an easy way to examine the rope. So props to her for pointing that out. I got the rope in there. We're stopping the piston, and now we can just take a adjustable wrench and turn the clutch loose. It's kind of binding on there. That spring is hitting the drum. They're all coming off together. We've got some damage to the worm gear. We're going to break loose the single screw that holds the chain guide plate in place. And we'll remove the plate. The hole in the plate where the worm gear is, looks a little beat up. Here's our bearing. Here's what's left of our worm gear. So a lot of times when you find the chain is dragging on a Husqvarna like this, that plastic worm gear will be melted. So I'm going to use a couple of little pry bars and pop this off the end of the crankshaft. There we go.
Well, that's roached, ain't it?
Yeah, that's roached for sure. And here's our oiler pinion. I gotta clean some of this up here. This little pin holds the pinion in place. And there's the pump pinion itself. The silver piece that's left there, that's the pump cylinder. And then the oil hose. Alright, we've cleaned it up. We got a new chain guide plate, new worm gear. I'm not convinced I need a new plate. I mean, the old one looked like the hole was kind of reamed out. I'm not doing any precise measuring here. I'm just trying to get an idea whether or not the old one here is actually worn or not. And as it turns out, it's not worn. I won't have to replace it. It's not damaged enough to justify replacing it. I will have to clean it up a little bit though, as far as the hole is kind of bent a little bit. You'll see I'm just going to tap it with a hammer. Not hitting it very hard because it's not bent very bad. Just cleaning it up a little bit. Actually fixing something and not just replacing a part, right? Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, what are we going to do next? What you got in the bag? We have a new pump pinion. There's the old one. You can see the wear on the old one. damaged pretty bad. So before we insert that into the sleeve there of the pump, the cylinder, put a little bit of oil on that shaft of that pinion just to lubricate it. Now it sits in there real nice. And then we have the locating pin for that pump. And it just pushes into the crankcase. I'm just going to make sure it's seated all the way. I'm not smacking that thing with the hammer. I'm just tapping it. So that all looks good. That chain guide plate will keep that pin from coming out. The pump seems to roll just fine on there. It all looks good. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on it. And we're going to grease our clutch bearing while we're at it, or our drum bearing. And put a little bit of grease on the end of the crankshaft. And a little bit of grease on our worm gear. Alright, everything's lubed up. Our chain guide plate is designed to keep the dirt out of the pump and hold everything in place. There's only a single screw on it, but the bar and the bar mount studs hold that plate down tight. But I want to make sure that it's kind of convex so that when I put the screw in, it's pulling down. I had to bend it a little bit because it was kind of concave, and if I would have put the screw in, the outer edges of the plate kind of would have been lifted up. So I put a little bit of a bow in it so clamping down the screw seals everything nice and tight. There we go. That's all put back together nice. Here's our worm gear. Seems to spin on there free. Couple of melted parts left over on the end of the sprocket. Get that cleaned up. Put our bearing on the crankshaft and then put our drum on. Everything feels really good. Now we got to put our clutch back together. Get all our pieces together. And on the outer hub, you'll see one side's marked with the word off. That's going to face out. Then I'm just installing the spring into one clutch shoe. And then into the second clutch shoe. And then these tabs that are on the outside edge of this hub, they're going to go over the, the ends of the spring at the shoes. A little clumsy here, but it goes together pretty easy. Just like that. Looks good. Now I can spin that whole assembly right onto the crankshaft. Reverse threads. Now I'm going to have to tighten this down. I still have the rope inside the cylinder. Grab my adjustable wrench. We don't have to get carried away. We just want to get it snugged up. And our rope comes out. It looks like it's intact at the loop where I folded it over, so it didn't get caught in a port, get cut, and leave any chunks inside the engine. The motor spins over free right now. We'll get this spark plug back in here and finish putting it back together. Now remember, his only complaint was that it wouldn't idle. And except for testing a few things and fixing the problem at the clutch, you know, we didn't do anything with the fuel system. Looks like he must have bought this one from Lowe's. Still got the blue sticker on it. Alright, let's see if this thing oils or not. See, I'm going to do that before I bar it up. Alright, it looks like it's oiling. I'm going to put the bar and chain back on here and fire it up again. And if it runs and idles, then that's all I'm going to have for you on the Husqvarna 435 chainsaw that wouldn't idle because of a clutch and oiler system problem. Thanks for watching. Later.